Good morning, world history students. Mr. Livers coming at you from the classroom. I have a couple minutes here to go over some of the things that I think would be important to review / consider before your test tomorrow. So here we go. So when you come into class on Wednesday, make sure that we have that big question sheet done, ready to be turned in. I'll be collecting that before the test, and I'll be going in the grade book. Here are some resources to consider with reviewing for the test. We have our term sheet that you're taking notes on, the big question sheet, which is due on Thursday, Quizlet, booklet. Quizlet's on there twice because I wanted to make sure people knew where it was right here in the class materials part. And then your week 5 and week 6 slideshow. So that would be for this week. You can see the week 6 slides. And then for week 5, that's our paper. Sorry, right here for you to view as well. Within various posts throughout the week, there are different assignments. So you could also add that to your review options as well. All right, so let's go ahead and start back with the introduction of Rome. I'm going to full screen this here. Here we go. And so we see here is our Roman Empire at the height of the Roman power. Various city states / territory set up, some for the main core of Rome, and then the imperial provinces that turned into be tributary states. We have the Punic series of wars. This was really important. So get rid of this. This is really important for the expansion of the Roman Empire, because once they took over this northern chunk of Africa and defeated the Carthaginians at Carthage, they were now able to kind of solidify their control of the Mediterranean, which allowed them to become more powerful. Roman Republic, we talked about this. We had this up on the board for the last couple of days, the various groups within the Roman government. So we have our consuls at the top. You can read those various parts within it. The Senate, the Council of Plebeians, the Assembly of Tribes, and then the Assembly of Centuries. So those are various parts of the Roman Empire, their government. Republic to Rome. So first off, we had our Caesar, Pompey, and Cassius. And so then Cassius dies in battle, which has left us with Caesar and Pompey. Caesar ends up winning and then names himself the emperor. So this is Julius Caesar, gave land to the poor, enlarged the Senate, which wasn't such a good thing, and then was assassinated later by some of his senatorial peers. The aftermath of the assassination, surprise, surprise, the Civil War. Power vacuum takes place. We now have another group of people. We have Mark Antony, Lepidus, Octavian, assassins defeated Asinians, are defeated. Octavian versus Mark Antony. Octavian ends up winning, and he becomes the next Caesar. He allows the Senate to exist, but under his control, so he's more aware that the Senate is kind of weakening Rome's influence, and so he takes a closer look at that. Appoints governors to those various parts of the empire that I talked about, understanding that if we give them the local governors more control, that they're able to manage their land a little bit more efficiently, and then stabilizes Rome with some new territory. Pax Romana, the peace of Rome, the empire expands. We have a series of 5 good emperors, tolerant, effective leaders. Local people rule themselves, as I mentioned before. Build many aqueducts within the empire. Aqueducts are important because that moves water for people to drink. Speaking of water, I'm going to take a drink of coffee. So good. All right, so within Rome now, we have this rise of poverty and other issues that are taking place. So what do the Caesars do? They build this huge stadium called the Colosseum to entertain the masses and or feed them while they are there. And so the Colosseum is meant to be kind of this a death arena where gladiators, Christians, large beasts come in to fight and entertain all the masses that are there. And then they are not able to worry about being broke and going home to like a crummy house. And so that's what those are for. We also see a lot of architecture that's similar to the United States' architecture with those pillars and grand buildings that we see around the United States. Here's a little image of those aqueducts. Remember, the water source, see if my cursor will work, would be over here on the left. And then these are built to slowly go down or up, depending on where the water source is, to bring the water into Rome. Move my face over here. Women's roles: upper class children educated. Children become adults at 16. Arranged marriages, divorces possible. Women get more rights in the 100 CE. There we go. We have slavery revolts within the empire after a period of time with the slaves actually being the cannon fodder, so to speak, of the Colosseum. So they're not very happy about that. So we see a series of revolts with that. And that will bring us to the end of that day. Christianity develops within the Roman Empire. We see Roman religion mainly is the pagan religion. This means the gods allow them to conquer others. They're kind of connected with the mythology of old Greece, but we're now seeing that it's kind of breaking away from that. People are kind of slowly changing their minds. The Judaism, there's a revolt in 66 CE, and they destroyed the temple of Judaism. That western wall is all that's left of that temple. New faith spreads around the Roman Empire. So we had apostles that were moving various information, oral stories, written letters. The New Testament came to be, still seen as a form of Judaism, but then it did kind of mold into that idea of Christianity. Oops. There we go. Roman persecution of Christians. So now, after the spreading of the word of the New Testament, we have this group of Christians that are now coming around, refuse to follow the Roman gods or worship the emperors. This caused the emperors to be very mad, and so then the Christians then became used for entertainment in the Colosseum. Persecution begins during the reign of Nero, Emperor Nero. It's never very widespread. It's kind of localized within the peninsula of Italy. Romans changed their ideals. So as this religious change is slowly taking place, Romans are buying into it more and more and more, converting to Christianity. We have Emperor Constantine, which is kind of the main emperor that supports the spread of Christianity and allows it to be the official religion of the Roman Empire. So that's going on with that. And then eventually we have the fall of the Roman Empire. Yeah, it was really quick. In just that 5 minutes of time, the Roman Empire has fallen. We had an activity on this where we went over 6 various aspects of this. A lot of us, I think that lesson was really helpful in kind of thinking about what types of problems of Roman Empire or any empire faces. So we see here, there's some examples of various, move my face again, groups within Central Europe that kind of bombarded and or attacked various parts of the Roman Empire. Roman Empire wasn't able to really move their army to stop all of these various groups at one time. So the smaller tribal groups within Central Europe had more of an advantage to attack and kind of do what they wanted to. And so that will wrap up the Roman Empire. Moving on to the Han Dynasty. Han Dynasty started 206 BCE. This is where the Han Dynasty united all of the warring city-states of China, which is like a great thing to happen. This is the first classical Chinese civilization and first golden age. We talked about this idea of a golden age several times before, of a lengthy period of time of peace, happiness, development of technology, development of art, development of writing that takes place because guess what's not going on? Civil wars and death. And so that's also a nice thing to think about when we're thinking of golden age, that hey, everyone's happy and like you have time to actually find a book and read and think about it. Confucianism becomes important to the Han Dynasty in this time. We had our various problem-solving activity with Wu Di, the emperor of the Han Dynasty. It's talked about the aggressive nomads from the northeast, foreign trade, the setting up of this most international highway called the Silk Road, increasing government control, trying to balance this idea of taxing the peasants but not taxing them too much. Turned out to be a difficult task. Organization within the government. Civil service examinations took place within all of the government. This was kind of the way to move yourself up. So if you were in kind of a low spot in the village and you did well on this civil service exam, you could be appointed as a various government official, which would be amazing for your family, which is kind of like a social uplifter. So that's kind of an important thing to to do well on. Those types of tests are still actually prominent within China and Southeastern Asian countries, or Southeast and Eastern Asian countries today. Cool. So the fall of the Han Dynasty, yep, just like that, another empire is done. The Yellow River flooded, causing the change of the course, many deaths, the economies were kind of thrown off, and then the Wu Di was not able to pick up the pieces. Corrupt officials didn't really help out with that process either. Now we're moving into the Muranin. Oh my gosh, you guys are gonna have to forgive me. I don't know why I struggle with this so bad. Mauryan Empire covers the subcontinent of India, except for the south. We have two different groups that are down here with the Iron Age chieftainships. Don't know what that is, and then the Shalahala Kingdom down in Sri Lanka. So this is unifying parts of India that Alexander the Great, back from that first test, kind of took over. Capital city of Pataliputra, which is in this area over here. This kind of forces the empire to have like a centralized government, which we'll talk about in here in a little bit. Important leaders. We have the founder, Chandragupta Maurya. He was the first and original founder of this empire. Always afraid that someone would assassinate him, retires, and to become a better Jainist, which is a type of religion you don't really need to know about. His son comes in and takes over for a little bit of time, and then there's a civil war. I made a mistake and thought that Ashoka was his son, Chandragupta's son. It's actually his grandson. But Ashoka did kill off his brothers to gain control of the empire, considered the most successful of the Mauryan Empire. Religion in the empire. Oop, my face is in the way again. We have Buddhism kind of start off. It's a newer religion, 200 years old. I know that doesn't sound new, but it is new in the grand scheme of things. And so after this large battle, my goodness, I didn't have another sip of coffee. There we go. So after this large battle in Kalinga, Ashoka feels horrible for all the death that he caused, and then he kind of converts to Buddhism to hopefully atone for those problems. Sends envoys or messengers to Syria, Greece, Libya, and China to spread the word of Buddhism. So Ashoka is to Buddhism what Constantine is for Christianity. Constantine was that emperor in Rome. Ashoka's impact, spread Buddhism, built sutras throughout the empire, which is temples, constructed pillars, which reflect the teaching / kind of universal law that he wants everybody to follow. Taught tolerance for all the religions. Remember that Hinduism also sprung up in India too. Ashoka didn't get rid of it, which is kind of a unique trend for Europe, or for rulers, especially in Europe and India. And so they... sorry, I lost my thought. So he kind of was accepting of all religions, which supports that tolerance idea. Built some public works, dams, wells, hospitals, public gardens, even education for women. I'm moving my face all over the place right now. Trade in the Mauryan Empire. Bureaucratic system leads to well-developed trade. They had a single currency when Ashoka took over. Silk, textiles, and spices are traded from that Silk Road, and then the biggest exporters for this empire would have been nutmeg, ginger, and cinnamon. Here's kind of the trade routes for the empire, and so we can see that over here on the right, coming in from China, and then kind of another passage up here through the Himalayas to get to China as well. Cool. We did the close read on that, so if you have any questions with that, you can go through it. Moving on to the Gupta Empire, we talked again about golden age of this empire. The overview of this empire, smaller than the Mauryan Empire. This again allows it to be a little bit stronger because it didn't have such a huge area to protect compared to the Mauryan Empire. Was never as centralized, so that capital city for the Mauryan Empire kind of was its downfall. And so the Gupta Empire was able to kind of spread itself out and manage itself a little bit more efficiently. They focused on trade, mathematics, science, literature, arts, and then focused on, taking advantage of gold, silver, and copper mines. Copper is really good for building pipes for moving water. Here's kind of a mini map of the Gupta Empire over here. And as you can see, we have various city-states kind of spread out through this empire, which again allowed it to not be so centralized. Gupta mathematics was important. You can kind of see the different parts here. Concept of zero, first base number, or 10 number system. Watched a little bit of a video on that, which is right here. Feel free to watch it again if you zoned out during it. Came up with a decimal system, and then this concept of pi, 3.14, and a bunch of other numbers. Here's kind of an overview of what those numbers / writing system looked like for the various mathematical stuff. Oops. Science, big breakthroughs in science is that the Gupta scientists figured out that the Earth actually rotates around the sun and not the other way around. That was a big thing. Talked about this concept of gravity, of figuring out why the birds stay in our ozone layer, in our atmosphere, versus just falling out to the stars. And then we also see that the Gupta Empire was insanely advanced in the field of medicine compared to Europeans. They were several hundred years ahead of what the Europeans were. Maybe it had to do with something with all the 100,000 bodies laying around from the previous battle of the former empire. Just a random thought. We see the development of literature, Hindu epic writings of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. These were various epic poems of various warriors and battles that took place within the empire and the Gupta Empire. And so that was a characteristic of their culture. Some various statues. There's a video that I'm not going to have you watch. One of the things that I did notice, and I didn't explicitly talk about this with a big question sheet, was whose stories do you believe were told the most when talking about the Golden Age? Unfortunately, by now, as a senior, you should figure out that whoever has the most money or whoever has the most influence in a society usually is going to have their points of view expressed and or told the most. And so within this caste system here, sorry, I'm going to move my camera's falling down a little bit. Apparently I'm hitting things too much. There we go. We have their top three tiers, the Vishas, Kachistas, and the Brahmins. They're probably going to be the ones that get all the fame and glory. They're the ones that have access to paper and or very sophisticated knowledge of writing, catchy stories or articulating stories that would be important within the empire. And so we unfortunately have the sutras and the untouchables that probably didn't experience a whole lot of this golden age that was taking place. Life would have been at least happier and more stable economically, but the voices of these two groups are probably not going to be heard. And then the last one, didn't talk about this a whole lot in class, but these are the laws of Manu, well, some of the laws of Manu. It's several pages long. If you want to have some fun, go ahead and read it. But these are just different laws that the Gupta Empire had come up with just to help the people govern themselves and kind of keep themselves accountable within the various social classes that they were at. All right, so that was a lot, but I hope that was helpful. Go back to this slide. Oh, I actually have those slides in two spots, so you could look at that in week 5 and week 6. Here's again the resources that you can use. Gosh, I keep hitting the desk. This camera's not on very sturdy. So that's all that I have for you. I think this video is about, how long is it? About 18 minutes. Hopefully it's not too boring. Feel free to email me if you have any questions, but that's all I got. Enjoy your day off and don't sleep all day. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.